So hey there, fellow wanderer of the web, it's Frank Bush here again. So in today's video, I had the good people over at ITEHIL send me one of their portable reverse osmosis water filtration systems. So I'm going to do an unboxing of this. I'm assuming I'll need to charge it up and stuff, and then for the second half of the video, I'll do some examples of using it out in the field and see how effective it is. So if you're interested in kind of off-grid portable water filtration systems and that kind of thing, then stay tuned, yeah? So like I say, for the first part of the video, I just busted out my trusty multi-tool and just kind of pop open the box and that kind of thing and get a peek at the inside. I figure I'd just show you the packaging. You know, there's a lot of people kind of curious of what the quality of the packaging is and that kind of thing when these products arrive. So I'll give you a quick peek at that kind of stuff. And I'll try not to make this too much of the video, but it looks like it comes with a secondary box inside. So I'll just pull that up and shift angles here. I'll shift camera angles and I'll just pull this box out and show you kind of what this looks like, and we'll keep going. Yep. All right, so we got that inside box out and kind of show you a picture of the face of it, if you will. So it looks like good quality graphics and stuff they put onto the box, you know. Well, the ITEHIL water purifier, they're calling it here. But I know that this is a reverse osmosis system. It doesn't handle salt water as far as I'm aware, but it does use reverse osmosis for freshwater. So needless to say, the packaging looks like it's good quality. All sorts of, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, which kind of becomes standard really in a lot of these modern products. It looks like the packaging is of good quality, so, you know, protective foams and all that kind of stuff. I'll just toss some of that out of the way. So it's got one box here. We'll open it up, we'll go through that box and see what it has involved. And then it looks like the main unit here, then it's just sitting with a foam pad underneath. So I'll just pull this main unit out, pull the plastic off, and we'll take a look at that as the next part. Yep. Okay, so I pulled the plastic off the main body component here, and it looks like, you know, this is the handles for the unit. It feels fairly light. It's only a couple pounds, you know, maybe 5-10 pounds, that kind of thing. And this looks like the area where I would connect in the filtration systems and that kind of stuff. There's some ports on the side for, I'm assuming, for intake and outtake hoses and all that kind of stuff. We'll go through the fine details of that, but yeah, I'll just kind of show you what the overall body of this looks like now. Like I said, there's a few buttons and stuff on it. Seems fairly straightforward. I've got a little container on the side, little door port, where, yeah, looks like we're hooking on our hose and tubes on this side. And we've got a similar kind of thing on this side. So, you know, it seems fairly straightforward so far. I'll shift camera angles. We'll open up this box and see what it has in it for all its details. But, you know, and I guess I can pan in and give you a close-up of what it says on here. Well, I won't bother reading through it, but just to show people all the details of it, yeah? I'll shift my camera, show you this, and then we'll open up that box. So hopefully the camera's picking that up, or you'll be able to see the details here. Looks like it's just walking through the basic instructions of kind of how to set this thing up and use it and that kind of thing, right? Where, you know, press and hold for more than 3 seconds, turn it on, blah, 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 right? So it just walks through the instructions in that regard. Like I say, I'll go through all of that during this video to make sure that we kind of get it all set up properly. But as far as I know it to be, this is all a powered unit. So, you know, I want to get this plugged in so that I'll be able to use it for the second half of the video. I've got to charge it up so we can use it out in the field, yeah? So I'll shift camera angles now. I'll go over to this box and we'll start going through what's in here. So, and I'll stop and show you just the face of the box itself now. So this is their accessories box. It says it comes with one inlet interface component. Then we've got an outlet interface component. There's 2 of those. Got an accessory bag. It's got the reverse osmosis filter and then a hybrid filter. There's a charging cable and a user manual. And that's kind of the standard accessories or whatever, but it's good that it kind of shows you on the face of the box of what you're expecting to see inside, yeah? So I'll just pop it up and we'll start to look at the details of that now. All right, so we can see it's got some hosing that's been supplied. This looks like the charging cable. Let's just see here. Yeah, it looks like a USB-C, so it should be compatible with all my little battery chargers and all that kind of happiness. So I like to see that. I've got, you know, lots of USB equipment that runs USB-C that it should be compatible with. And then there's the hybrid filter. And I'll go through the details of these things, but we get the hybrid filter, the reverse osmosis filter, and this one feels a little bit heavier than this one. They're close to the same weight, but some sort of little handle. We'll see how that attaches onto the unit. And then a bag of goodies. I always like bags of goodies. And I'll read through this instruction manual, and I won't bother doing that all on the camera, but if I see any highlighted, you know, things worth mentioning and that kind of stuff, but I'll just pop open this bag and see what they got inside it. So, got some sort of hosing tube, which is always good. So other than that, this bag is empty. It just had this, looks like the intake hose, where it's got like a little filter on it to stop any large particulate from getting into the system and that kind of stuff, which is always good. But like I say, I'll stop now, kind of read through this manual here and get a quick feel for how I assemble this thing and get it to the point where I'm ready to charge it and all that kind of happiness. So just give me 2 minutes and I'll cut back. Okay, so one of the first things I'll mention here is they've got two output ports here that exist. The one on the right is for drinking water outlet, and the other one is for what they call domestic water outlet. So direct water filtered out of this product is recommended for drinking water. So you know, you get all your drinking water out of this side, while the concentrated water is recommended for domestic, so like washing and cleaning and that kind of stuff, you know. So it's good to see that they kind of have two different bases of water. Of this one's primarily for drinking, that I'm sure has a higher level of filtration, and this one's just to make it, you know, fit to use around a camp or around your off-grid cabin or that kind of thing, that allows you to kind of, you know, do your dishes and all that kind of happiness without it being a significant issue. Yeah. And then I'll just flip that around, and like I say, this will be where the water intake connection occurs. So it's got the one intake and the two separate, you know, outputs, if you will. And when it comes to different qualities of water filtration system, I'm assuming, yeah? Okay, and I'll show a close-up of the control panel here. So this is where you plug in your Type-C charging. I don't normally like these little tiny things, but, you know, I understand it's for trying to keep the water out and that kind of stuff, but that's where you plug it in to charge it in that regard. This is your power on and off, and that kind of stuff sit here. That's your main power on and off. This is your reverse osmosis filter reset. This is the hybrid filter reset. And then down here, we've got a working indicator, charging indicator, reverse osmosis filter replacement indicator, and a hybrid filter replacement indicator. So it'll throw little lights here to let you know when it's time to replace the filter units, which is always handy, right? That it kind of has that kind of stuff to let you know what's happening in that regard. So I'll shift camera angles again, and I'll show the filters and where they connect into the unit and that kind of thing, yeah? So now where these filters connect, it's got it clearly marked of the reverse osmosis on this side and the hybrid filter on this side. And it shows you a little how to lock and unlock it. So you slide your filter in and kind of twist it, and it just locks into position, yeah? So really elementary, fairly straightforward stuff in that regard. So like I say, I'll just install this filter now because, you know, I might as well just kind of get on with it, right? So you should be able to kind of press down and you'll feel it sink in a little bit, and wherever it sinks in as you kind of turn it, then you can turn it and it's locked. Now that's locked into place, right? So this isn't something you have to do every single time. That filter unit will stay in the main body of this for, you know, extended period of time, if you will, moving forward. Now this is just for the initial setup, right? And then I'll do the same with this reverse osmosis filter. I'll just turn around and get some of the packaging off that, and should be just the same. I'll feel it until I feel that it kind of sinks in a bit. There we go. And then that's really just, it sinks into a little area where there's some seals down at the bottom, where the seals are just sinking and locking everything, right? And that way everything's kind of waterproof and airtight and all that kind of stuff, right? But as you can see, just that elementary. I've got both my filters in now, and I'll go through the specs and tell you exactly how long that these filters are supposed to last and that kind of thing. So I'll grab those details and then I'll give you the exact specifics on that, yeah? And then this should just close and off we go. So this unit weighs about 13 kilograms. It's about 6 pounds, to give you an idea. It's easily able to pick that up in a single hand. You know, if I can pick this up and move it around, you know, really, really easily. But I'll stop now. Like I say, I'll get the specs on exactly how long these filters last to give you an idea of, exactly how long you can have this in your off-grid setup before you'd have to replace those filters, to give you an idea how many filters you'd have to kind of have for longer term and that kind of thing, yeah? So let me go pull up those specs and then I'll come back and let you know. So like I say, we got the two different filters that sit in here. So first we'll talk about the hybrid and then we'll go off and talk about the reverse osmosis one, yeah? So with the hybrid filter, it's a PP cotton filter with activated carbon layer into it. So it filters out large particles like sediment and rust, while activated carbon absorbs impurities such as chlorine and organic compounds. It's mainly about improving the water quality and taste by removing odors and contaminants, yeah? And when it comes to the reverse osmosis filter, that's a reverse osmosis membrane, right? So it truly filters everything harmful without H2O due to reverse osmosis membranes with nanoscale pores of 0.1 nanometers. To give you an idea kind of how much that this reverse osmosis unit will filter out. That's smaller than any other ordinary membranes, which are generally speaking between 10 and 100 nanometers. And to give you an idea for the lifetime of each one of these units now, for the reverse osmosis filter, it can handle, generally speaking, anywhere from about 600 to 800 gallons. And for the hybrid filter, it's about 300 to 400 gallons. So, if you're using this in an off-grid shelter, and you're burning through, say, 2 gallons a day, you're talking roughly, this is going to have to replace these units about, once a year for the reverse osmosis, and potentially about once every 6 months of daily use. I'm talking now, if this was your main system that you were relying on for your water supply, of about every 6 months or so, give or take, for the hybrid filters, and for the reverse osmosis filter about once a year, right? And that would be, like I say, you're relying on this as your primary source of water supply. And for the batteries that are in here, I believe they're a lithium iron phosphate, but they've got, they're rated for 2,000 cycles. So that should give you about 15 years worth of use. So, this thing can last a significantly long time when you're off grid and out in the field. Now, one of the things I like about this is the fact that it is charging via the USB-C. When we go out into the field, I'll show you that, I can bring along small portable folding solar panels and that kind of thing, and just plug those directly into this unit because I've got USB-C or USB based folding solar panels that I can plug directly into this unit and charge it with equipment that I would already readily be bringing off grid with me anyways. So I'll shift camera angles and we'll kind of carry on getting this to the point that we're ready to use it out in the field, yeah? But as you can see, popping in the filters are really easy. And when it comes to, don't quote me on price or anything, but when it comes to these filters, they're somewhere around 30 bucks or so, give or take. I mean, it's always time sensitive stuff and what country you live in and all that kind of stuff. But, it's not breaking the bank. If you sit back and said, okay, I had a couple of these that I, brought with me, they'd be easy enough to have enough equipment to have this thing run for years in some sort of off-grid cabin and that kind of stuff, yeah? So, and you're not going to break the bank with it. Like I say, you're talking about 30 bucks American or so, give or take. So, in Canada, it might be closer to 40, that kind of thing, right? So not super expensive units for how much they're actually providing for you. But one way or the other, we'll move on with the rest of this video, right, and get it to the point where it's fully ready to use out in the field. Okay, and when it comes to the water outlet stuff, so they give two different colors. So yeah, I guess you can choose, which one you prefer to have as being your one to identify as being the drinking water and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to make my blue one be the one that's the drinking water and that kind of stuff, yeah? And when you press those in, it kind of locks and holds that now, and that hose is kind of locked in a position. If you want to get that back off again, you just kind of press in on this little unit and you can pop it back off. But it's got like a self-locking feature into it where that's locked. Oh, that's locked on now and easily able to use. Like I say, I kind of give it a tug. You can see it's locked on, it's not going anywhere. But as soon as I press that in, buff, it just comes right off real easy. So it's easy enough to kind of, secure your lines and that kind of thing. And it's good in that regard of, you can get this type of piping and that kind of stuff, tubing, if you will. You can get that fairly easily at hardware stores or anything. So if you wanted to get a longer length of this and, replace it with something, as you move through time, all that stuff's pretty easy, right? And like I say, same with the other side. And it's just that easy to hook those in. So it's really elementary. I won't bother leaving those in. I'll just throw them into the bag because I've still got to charge this unit and stuff probably overnight. And then I'll bring it out tomorrow in the field and we'll just kind of carry on the video out in the field. But I just wanted to show in detail of that's how easy it is to kind of connect these tube units. You know, it's really elementary in that regard. So now I'll just flip it over. I'll just close that back up because, you know, gotta be detailed about things. And I'll just flip it around to the other side and I'll turn around and grab the intake hose and that kind of stuff and show you how that connects too. Yep. So now this side connects a little more ruggedly, if you will. Like I say, it's got the end that would sit into your water supply that you're intaking from. And I like how it's got just this little filter unit built right into it. That's always nice, right? Separate from the main filtering of the water, just to stop any particulate and stuff. When you're out in rivers, you can get sediment and that kind of stuff, right? Just stops a lot of that. But in essence, you just set this in on this side, and then this end bit can just turn around and screw right in. And it can turn separate from the hose that's connected to it, so it's always good in that regard, right? But you just kind of brace it and secure it right into there. And like I say, this hose bit kind of turns independently. But now I can turn around and run that off and just hook it into my intake of the water, you know, my creek or lake or whatever I'm pulling off of, yeah, puddle or whatever it ends up being. So either way, that kind of shows you the basic components of hooking up the tubes and kind of getting that kind of stuff up and running. So I'll just pop this off and I'll show you how elementary it is to just hook it up to a charge. We'll get that going and then I'll make my next scenes after I get this bad boy fully charged up of using it out in the field and using it as a practical water filter, yeah? Like I say, I just kind of take all this stuff off so I can easily move it around my house without having a bunch of hoses attached and that kind of stuff. But I do like how it's got the little kind of caps and stuff to help keep everything. You know, this one kind of seems a little funny because it's like, yeah, I guess you're stopping dirt and stuff from getting in, but normally I always find these little caps, they always end up just getting ripped off and that kind of stuff when you're out in the field. I don't find they ever last long, but, you know, I understand that they put them on there for effort, right? So one way or the other, let's just turn around and bust this out to the charger and get this charging so that we're able to use it tomorrow. Okay, so I know they supplied a cable, but I've got tons of USB-C. So I just got it hooked into one of my battery banks. I showed out how I built in previous videos. And just going to plug that bad boy in. And I can see now I'm taking a charge. Hopefully the camera's picking that up okay. And that'll go off and just have to charge for hours and hours and that kind of thing, right? So one way or the other, I'll make the next scenes after this is fully charged up of me taking this out in the field. And let's, you know, filter off some water out in the field and see how good it looks and tastes and all that kind of happiness, yeah? All right, fellow wanderer of the web. Well, it's the next day now. I let the water filter charge overnight. Just let it go for like 24 hours. It looked like it was still taking a charge at that point in time. I put a meter on it and it was charging at about 5 watts an hour. So, you know, I don't know what to say, but either way, it sat on the charger for 24 hours. And we're now down at probably one of the murkiest local creeks that are in my area. This one has a lot of turbidity in the water, so I thought it would be a good example to show. I'll do a close-up of the creek and kind of come in and show you how murky the water is and that kind of thing, yeah? But we'll use this as the example to see how well this device ends up filtering the water. So like I say, here's a better angle. Hopefully you guys can see that on the camera of, you know, it's fairly murky. There's a lot of sediment and stuff in the water. There's been a lot of rains in the area I'm in. You know, generally speaking, a lot of the creeks in the area I'm in have really good water quality. And this one is probably one of the poorer ones, so I thought it'd be a good example. But hopefully you can see there's a fair bit of darkness to this water, so it should give a good example. And I'll go off now, and just like I showed when I was back at the house, I'll hook on all the tubes and kind of get those ready. And that way we can move on with the example for the water filter, yeah? Okay, so I've hooked on all the tubes and that kind of stuff now, and it's good. The line that's the intake that goes into the creek is actually fairly long. I decided to switch up which colors I was going with when it came to the drinking water and the kind of wash water and that kind of stuff, but all I'm going to do is simply toss that now out into the water supply and let it sink. I'm going to come over to the device now, and generally speaking, when you first run filters, I'm just going to turn this on. Press and hold it for 3 seconds on the on, and I can see the green light lit up. Lets me know that it's running. Now normally it'll go through a self-cleaning and priming cycle generally speaking, with these types of devices, where it'll take a few minutes to kind of kick in and start to do its thing, yeah? But the thinking really is, once it starts to take water in through the intake, and I'm starting to see that now where water's already coming into the system, it'll start to spit water out. And for the first about 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to let this run. When you're dealing with brand new fresh filters, you know, if there's any kind of dust or sediment within the filter itself, you want to just let that stuff flush through, yeah? And generally speaking, when it comes to reverse osmosis water filters, the colder the water is, the slower you're going to have the production of the output water, yeah? It normally takes a little longer when you're dealing with colder water, but I can tell this machine's really quiet. It's barely making any noise at all. So I'm just going to let this run, and when I start to see the water coming out, I'll kick it back over. But other than that, it should take a few minutes to kind of prime itself, if you will, yeah? So I'll show you now. It's been about 30 seconds, 45 seconds. We're starting to get water flowing. Now I've got this hooked up to the water that would be, you know, wash water and that kind of thing. It's not something you necessarily want to drink, but it's good enough to kind of clean dishes and let them sit and dry and that kind of stuff, yeah? And the blue hose is a bit longer, so I thought it would be better to use this one just for letting it do runoff and that kind of stuff. But it's good to see that it's already starting to put out. And then the white hose would be the one that's drinking water. You can see it's coming out a little slower. And but just in a matter of 45 seconds to a minute, I'm already seeing, I just grabbed a container from home that was clear so you guys could see that. Of now I'm going to end up dumping this out, because like I say, for the first 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to let this filter run and just kind of prime itself and clean itself out. And after about 10 minutes, I'll stop, I'll take a sample off of this, and I'll tell you how good the drinking water is. We'll show you on camera and that, and then I'll take a sample of the blue to show you kind of how clear that is compared to the turbidity of the water we saw in the creek, yeah? But as you know, just from first glance, I can see there's a noticeable difference in clarity and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good sign that this filter's working exactly as expected. And I'll stop and I'll just let this kind of run. I'll shift camera angles and I'll start talking about kind of how I would want to use this in an off-grid setup, yeah? So yeah, kind of shift camera angles. Now, if you've watched previous videos of mine, I've shown kind of off-grid water supplies and off-grid kitchens and that kind of thing, where I was simply pumping water up from a water supply like a river or a lake and that kind of stuff into a base camp with, say, an example of a walled tent or something along that lines, yeah? And really, I would use this more inside my shelter, where once I kind of got that, I'll call it gray water, but once I got that gray water up from the creek or whatever, I would then have this filter water into a separate, in a 5-gallon bucket, and process the water right up in my camp, yeah? And that way I kind of had 3 layers of water. I had water that I didn't worry about if I just needed water for projects. I had water that I could use to do dishes, and then I had water as a drinking supply. So in future videos, I'll probably detail out fusing this reverse osmosis water filter system in with my walled tent, mobile kitchen, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll make that future video content. But one of the good parts about this is where it's a USB-C input. If you've watched other previous videos of mine, I've got folding USB solar panels that I could easily use to keep this thing going out in the fields indefinitely. So it's one of those things where this stuff is fully compatible with a lot of the equipment that I already have existing. And hopefully you can stop and see now if this container's filled up. I'll just stop and kind of dump that out one more time and let this go. And where was I? Like I say, a lot of this is very compatible to systems I already have. If I was in a base camp, I'd want to have my kind of raw blue water bin, and then this pulled out of that and fed into a wash bin, which I use with the faucet on the sink, and into a separate bin which I use purely for drinking water. and kind of had 3 different tiers of water that I had going as I went through time. And then I had USB based solar that was just powering this device indefinitely through time. Like I say, I'll do future videos kind of detailing all that out to show advanced mobile kitchens and that kind of stuff, yeah. But hopefully you can see that the rate at which this glass container is filling up is, you know, relatively rapid. When you're talking about water filter systems like this, you don't normally expect it to be doing, say, a liter every 10 seconds or something. It's not like it's coming out of a faucet, right? The reverse osmosis and that takes time to do, and it's really, you let this run in the background, it's preparing off, you know, 5-10 gallons of water for you to go, and it's just doing what it needs to do without having to stop and boil water off continually or chemically treat it with hypochlorous acid and that kind of stuff like I've shown in previous videos, yeah. So I'll shift camera angles once more. It looks like we're getting pretty full on this container, and I'll show you the clarity of that, and we'll take a drink and see what it tastes like, yeah. All right, so to just show you, in my mind, that's like crystal clear. I know this glass gives it a bit of a kind of tinted color, but that's the glass itself more than anything. But here, I'll take a sip now. That's fantastic. Tastes better than the tap water I have at home. So it's good in that regard of, like I say, coming out of a creek that's kind of this murky, to see that it's able to produce water that clear. There's no taste to it at all. It's really clean. I've drinking out of this creek before, and I found the taste was, you know, undesirable at best. I'll just put it that way. And even after boiling it, it had an off taste to it. So I thought it'd be a good example. This filter's gotten rid of all of that. So I'm happy with this product. And like I say, I'll try to do future videos showing this kind of incorporated into more of a base camp setup, and then working with the other, you know, kitchen setup that I have. But I'll stop, shift the camera angles here, and start to wrap this video up. But you know, there's not much to show in that regard of, I'll show the clarity that's coming out for the dishwater and that once I finish drinking back this, you know, drinking water, and show kind of the quality and clarity of that, and then I'll start to wrap the video up. But all in all, ITEHIL makes a great product. I'm pretty pleased with what I'm seeing so far. All right, so like I say, I'll stop now and just put the wash water, if you will. It's not supposed to be fit enough to drink. Here, let me just make sure I get that off. Don't get too much dirt into things, because where the hose was just laying around. But the drinking water seems to purify at a faster rate as well, where it cleans the water supply at a way quicker rate. But I'll fill up this glass container and show you how clean it is. Now, I wouldn't trust this for drinking because of like parasites and other things that may not be filtered out that would have been caught in the drinking water supply side, but it'll definitely be a lot cleaner than the brown water we're seeing out of the creek, yeah. Okay, so like I say, we've got almost a full container now. I'm just going to turn that off now, and just take the example of the kind of wash water, if you will, and see what that looks like. I'll shift the camera up a bit so I can see a little bit more of a kind of tinge to it. Looks a little bit more yellow. Still looks a heck of a lot better than the creek water, but like I say, this isn't necessarily something that would be for drinking or that, but you know, good enough to do dishes with and that kind of stuff, where you know it's just going to air dry, and anything that would be in the water is going to die when the water dries off the plates and all that. But at least you're not getting a bunch of gunk on your plates. But generally speaking, I'll just throw that back into the creek. Generally speaking, I'm really pleased. This ITEHIL reverse osmosis water filter seems to be doing a fantastic job, exactly as it stated. And you know, when it comes to how fast this is producing things, you know, generally speaking, it seems to be about 2 cups every minute or so, so 500 mils or so every minute. You know, it's not super fast in that regard, but this is one of those things where when you have this as a base camp, you set it up, it runs for, you know, half an hour, whatever, filling up your larger water containers that you're then going to have throughout the next day or two, right? And you just cycle this on every couple days to ensure that you've got yourself clean drinking water supply. But when it comes to off-grid cabins and that, it's fantastic. You know, the few improvements I could see them doing as we went through time was giving a power supply where I could plug this into AC if I wanted to, or I had a 12-volt plug-in, and that it wasn't just purely solely USB-C. I'd like to know better details about the battery you know, that kind of thing. But as it goes for the water filter itself, you know, top shelf. You know, I'm really pleased. I've used other water filters in the past that I didn't feel produced quite as nicely as this does. Of, like I say, with the amount of turbidity in this water, I was expecting some sort of flavor or something in the water. I tasted nothing. It tasted like clean, you know, fresher than out of my tap at home. So it's one of those things of, like I say, I'll stop and kind of stop ranting and I'll wrap this up. But as it goes for the ITEHIL reverse osmosis water filter, solid product in my mind. At 13 pounds, this thing would be great for using in off-grid purposes, yeah. So like I say, if you enjoy this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching, yeah? Cheers.